thank you. I'm really reassured to be considered at my age a rising star, but I assume it's something to do with the fact I was quite heavily involved with Viagra. I also thank you all for coming here yet again, because some of you have waited 2 years to hear this presentation because my co-director doesn't always turn up, so I'm the one who does. Click, yeah. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start at the end, because I think what we're all interested in is potentially, and I'm not forecasting, what residual value there is in the company, and I'll explain where we are in terms of the marketing of the product that we're here to learn more about. And the way you determine what the commercial opportunity is shown in this type of slide here. You do something that's called price point sensitivity, which essentially says you go out into the major markets, you have a target product profile, which is your clinical profile of the drug, and you ask people how much they're prepared to pay. You know, that's about as crude as it gets. You ask the healthcare and providers as well if that's relevant. What we've done, because we have constructed licensing deals, we have been doing this. We use the same type of agency that I used to use when I was at Pfizer, so it just saves them repeating the exercise. And what you begin to build up a picture of is, we know the population in the countries of interest, we know the incidence and prevalence of the disorder, which is shown in the top part of the slide there, and then you factor in what number of people are going to present, how bothered they are, how much they're going to be prepared to pay. And the benchmark for the people in the audience who have been plethora and Regent investors for some time is that they know that we've actually done a deal with Recordati in Europe, and they know that is worth, because we've announced this, 46 million euros upfront milestones, and they know that we're going to get 15 to 25% royalties. The figure there is the predicted, not by us, this is by the independent analysis, the predicted annual sales, and this is in euros, 232 million euros in annual sales. So anyone can work out what royalties are likely to come back into the company rather. Now that's already happening. Recordati have got a big launch symposium in London tomorrow night, and they're going to be rolling it out in Europe later on this year. I can't comment much more on it than that. But the other key features are also shown on this slide as well. The single biggest commercial opportunity outside you investors, obviously, is in fact in the USA. And that's the holy grail, because a lot more disposable income there, people are prepared to pay more, and that's the last thing we've actually got to do. And there is some guidance in my presentation up the stairs. We are focusing now only on finalizing the program to get approval in the US and find a US partner, obviously, as well. So if you can begin to apply arithmetic or maths to say, right, if the guys could do a deal for X in Europe, what's it likely to be for the US? I'm not going to do that calculation for you, but that's why we're so interested in actually getting the US market. The UK market, and a lot of you have been on the bulletin board have been fairly aggrieved you haven't been able to get your supplies of this drug. The UK market, by the way, is minuscule compared to the overall market, but it is a politically important one. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is, well, I've said that we're going to be sharing in revenue in the way of royalties from Europe. What is the patent life? What life are we actually dealing with in Europe? And that actually shows the protection we've got in Europe, that you can see under intellectual property or supplementary patent certification, we're at least out to 2023 before a generic can come in. So 15% royalties on 300 million for X years is certainly worth having. In the US, and this is the guidance we've actually given, we're probably about 2 years away from approval. Much bigger opportunity. It's likely that the royalty rates will be pretty much the same. And the difference is that we've got to do another small study. The guidance is that we've given is $6 million. That doesn't sound all that small, but is actually small. And the difference is that the protection we'll get there is an approval of the NDA. You get 5 years patent protection. You do your first generic, and the FDA have stipulated a generic company will have to do full clinical equivalence. So that gives us some further degree of certainty about the commercial value of this product. Now, some of the cynics have said, does this actually work or does it not, and how well does it work? And this is shown here. The definition of someone with premature ejaculation is less than a minute. If you look at the axis there, it actually says minutes. It should say seconds, and I apologize for that. But at baseline, all our patients lasted less than a minute. As you can see there, the next set of columns, placebo and Fortisson, double-blind study. You can see slight placebo effect. If you don't get a placebo effect, you've fabricated the data, quite frankly. You always get a placebo effect. But if you look at the Fortisson there, quite a considerable improvement. The important thing is as well, we then 87% of the patients responded, by the way, and we give them all the chance to get drug for the next 9 months. How many people do you think refused the drug? It was pretty close to zero. In fact, it was zero. Everyone wanted the drug. What actually happens then, they're now taking it not every day. You take it just before you have sex, and what you actually see is that the ejaculation latency time went up to close to 6 to 8 minutes. Most of the men in this room, the normal men in this room will last 6 to 8 minutes, so we're normalizing it. This is not a cure. You can say, boo-hoo, that's bad news. As a pharmaceutical company, that's good news. You don't necessarily want to cure things anyway, but we are normalizing this. Now, the other thing we did, which is quite smart from the marketing point of view, sex isn't all about time. If you notice the female part of the Daily Mail a couple of weeks ago, there was an outcry when the Mail Online started talking about this drug. There was a huge outcry from all the women saying, well, this is not just about time. What we spend a lot of time doing in terms of marketing is we look at distress, control, sexual satisfaction. And the important thing is, for the ladies, we didn't just look at the men, we actually looked at the women response in the partners or the women as well. So this is a drug not just for the man, not just about lasting longer, it's about the relationship, improving the relationship, sexual satisfaction, sexual control builds up as well. So it's not just a pharmacological effect, it's an emotional effect as well. And then I'll start at the start. That essentially says, why did you guys move from AIM to Hong Kong? And as a sole independent director, I sometimes wonder myself, because it was a very interesting experience. But essentially, what happens in Hong Kong is that there is this real appetite in Hong Kong and from People's Republic of China. There's a huge interest in, as Jim Mellon was talking about at least last year and a little bit this year, there's this huge interest in investable entities within Hong Kong. There's not enough healthcare companies for investors to invest in. So this is not, by the way, I'm not suggesting we're looking for investment. I'm just saying in terms of liquidity and volume, it's probably good for us all to have that level of appetite. Because there are other things, we haven't committed to doing this just now. We're committed to delivering value to shareholders from our licensing partner, Recordati. We'll do a US deal. And traditionally, for those Regent investors, you know the company tends to pay it back to shareholders. So I think that would still be the intention. But for, if you excuse the pun, the coming next would be, we have an idea about our technology, which is an aerosol technology for local delivery. We have an opportunity to develop a product for the treatment of Viagra failures. You say, well, Viagra's a great drug. Well, it is, but half of the people who try Viagra, it doesn't work. So by definition, a drug that works in the other half, there's a medical need and there's a commercial opportunity. So my organizer here is telling me speak up and shut up, so I'll shut up.